Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please placed on silent. Thank you. I have learned that in times of separation and loss and sorrow, the Psalms can bring much comfort and solace. And in this spirit, I now recite from the 23rd Psalm, this great Psalm of faith. And these words remind us that even when we feel alone or lonely, we are never truly alone. For God is with us. And we know that God is with Renee, with Rini. And we join together. If you're familiar with these verses, please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I continue with a modern-day poem, which we read at our synagogue at Temple Emmanuel from time to time, and always during the High Holy Days. Renee would have been familiar with it. I think she liked it. Otherwise, she would have told me. I'd like to personalize this for Rini. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we will remember Renee. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember Grandma. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember Renee. At the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we will remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us. as we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joy, we crave to share. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, when we have achievements that are based on hers, we will remember Renee. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. We will remember Renee, Rini, Grandma. She was memorable. She was unique, one of a kind, and one dynamic woman. To know Renee was to love her, and everyone did, and that's so obvious here today. She impacted so many people with her kindness and selfless giving, although maybe she never fully realized just how much she was appreciated and loved. That is why our loss is sad and difficult and profound, because Renee was such a constant and a positive presence in your lives. She was always there for you, her family, and many friends. She was ready to offer assistance, to give good advice, to be a trusted confidant, and to show care and concern. Your mom was always thinking of others, and she placed the needs of everyone else first. Indeed, the greatest joy in life is to be able to say, I still have something to do, I want to accomplish yet more, and so she did. She was like, to quote you, the Energizer Bunny, that's your word, just kept on going and doing and reaching and hoping. Rini had a good mind. She had a mind of her own. She was humble and modest, and she had a great sense of humor. And I know that she would want this service to be a celebration of a life well lived. So I believe that Renee might say to us now, she would say, thank you for being here. I think she'd be overwhelmed by that because she was gracious. And then she might say, don't mourn for me, for I did not lead a mournful life. And you know, in the balance, she certainly did not. She led a full, fulfilling, active, vital, purposeful, and good life. Early on, she learned the meaning of hard work and diligence. For 42 years, she worked in personnel at the Navy Yard. She was intensely loyal, dedicated, and highly respected by her coworkers. Her retirement coincided with the closing of the Navy Yard. I believe that's correct, at least at that time. They just couldn't go on anymore. Rini had many other interests and passions. As you may know, she was an animal lover, and ever since childhood, she was active in animal rescue and animal causes. She loved singing and musicals and performed in community theater. She loved watching the award shows, reading books like Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is very spiritual. and writing those many heartfelt and sweet letters and cards, and she never missed an occasion, and many of you were the recipient of them. She also liked a good sale. And she loved accumulating a lot of stuff. However, one cannot speak of Renee without also speaking of you, Jerry, Giovanni Shirasingh. So I'm going to tell a little bit about your story. Can you hear me all right? Yeah? She was a South Philly girl. You met at a dance. It was love at first sight for Jerry because Renee was beautiful and well put together and sharp and classy. And so the story goes that they arranged for a first date. But Jerry forgot to show up. So days later, you called and apologized. And she forgave you. And she gave you a second chance. And soon thereafter you were married. And the rest is your history. And over many years together, you evolved into a real team, a true partnership, best friends, soulmates. You called her the boss. You can explain that later. Because you so adored her and she so adored you, and you looked to her for direction. She was your role. And I can't even begin to imagine how much you will miss your life's partner. And how Mom loved you, Michelle and Michael, Scott and Leah, Glenn and Anne, and grandchildren who are here, right? So, are you Jacob? Jacob, Matthew, Reese, and Mitchell. And she will be so proud that you are here today to also help tell her story. Your mother and grandmother, I know, she was so proud of all of you. She was proud of your accomplishments, and prouder yet of the bright, sensitive, and caring family that you all are. She felt your constant support, care, concern, and love. And Renee will live on in you and through you and through all of our sacred stories and precious memories. However, I feel one can best understand and appreciate a person by the way in which one copes with adversity and setback, disappointment, illness, and loss. Renee had more than her share of medical issues, but you might not know it. She survived cancer twice, and she refused to give up or to give in. She always remained very positive and had a realistic outlook on life. And hours before her death, she was still writing checks, thinking of people that she had to make sure were taken care of. She was always thinking of everyone else right up to the very last moment. And Renee died, but she died knowing that she helped to raise, guide, teach, and inspire, along with you, Jerry, children and grandchildren who in turn have so much to offer to others. You are her and their precious legacy. She She was loved in turn. And we know that this love has not ended now with her passing. Her bright light can never be extinguished. For as long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. And to keep those memories going, I'm going to first call on Michelle.
I want to extend a sincere and heartfelt thank you for coming today to honor our mom, Renee Brand. She would never want to inconvenience anyone and tell you if you had something else to do, please don't change your plans on her account. She was a very selfless person who always thought of others, even in her last moments. And it truly fills my heart when others tell me how much they love her and how much she means to them. Renee Brand was one of a kind, the best kind. She grew up in South Philly with an older brother, Danny, wonderful nephews, Stephen and Jeff, and a family with a great sense of humor. This was a quality that our mom had in all situations, no matter how tough. When Mom and Dad met at a dance, Dad was struck by how beautiful and how sharp Mom was. Within a few months, they were married. He has been devoted and in love with her ever since those 56 years ago. His Renee Beanie from South Philly, the boss. My mom was the strongest person I know. I often called her the Energizer Bunny, which I had shared with the rabbi, because even if the body wasn't in the best shape, she really just kept going and going. I feel fortunate that I was able to share with her my admiration, appreciation, and love for her as well. When I was 13 years old, my mother was battling an aggressive form of breast cancer, and she didn't want us to know because why worry us? And she still took us to our dozens of activities and never missed a beat. One time she even checked herself out of the hospital while undergoing chemo to be at one of our events, IV bag still attached, and then checked back in. Who does that? She does. She gives devoted a whole new meaning. Our house was always filled with music, and animals, and barking, and squawking, and meowing, but always music. When most of us would retire at a certain age, not our mother. She was memorizing lines, participating in theater and plays, singing in singing groups, and volunteering at local theaters. Our mom had a beautiful voice, and she was a natural at performing with a personality to match. Because Mom did not have the opportunity to share her wedding day with her parents because they passed away before her wedding, she was even more grateful that she was able to dance at all 3 of her children's weddings. When she sang a beautiful rendition of Sunrise, Sunset at my wedding, it was truly one of my most cherished moments. She was grateful to have seen her 4 grandsons, Jacob, Matthew, Reese, and Mitchell, into their teenage years. She told me that one of her biggest regrets is not seeing who or what they will become later in life or seeing them marry. She was such a loving grandma. One time she got one of those large playhouses for her sons, and Grandma and Grandpa drove it up as a surprise, but there was literally a 7-truck pile-up on the New Jersey Turnpike. So it turned a possibly 2-hour drive into literally a 12-hour journey. They left in the afternoon and couldn't get to our house until the middle of the night. And they could have turned back at any time and tried for another day. But she wanted them to be surprised because that's who she was. And when they arrived, it was pitch black outside, no street lights, and we had this little tiny motion light by the garage that turned off every few seconds. So my mom and dad set up the playhouse, running to the motion light, setting up a little bit, and then repeat. They pulled an all-nighter. They must have been exhausted, hungry, and maybe even needed a bathroom break, but wouldn't think of bothering or waking us. Who does that? Grandma Renee. And you too, Dad, a testament to you too. It doesn't begin or end with family, but with animals as well. A lover of animals, she was an active supporter of the four-legged community. If she could give every animal a home and make sure every hungry animal was fed, she would. One time in her later years, she was aware of a group of animals that happened to be in a very unsafe area. Regardless of being unsteady on her feet, nothing could stop her from getting food to them. A police officer once spotted her and warned her of the danger and possible arrest. Okay, so she may have been trespassing. But still, when given the choice of her safety or possible jail versus getting those hungry animals food, animals won out, not even a second thought. Our mom loved a lot of things. Literally, Mom loved a lot of things. She kept a lot of things. She never threw out a lot of things. And Dad used to joke that she kept him around because she never threw anything out. Dad, you're a keeper regardless. I'm sure every memory and every souvenir of our lives is in that home. I may have been a cheerleader on the field, but she was my cheerleader throughout life. She helped and supported me to make choices that ultimately changed my life in so many ways. She encouraged me to apply for a job in New York, a fateful day that set in motion me meeting Michael and starting a family of my own. She always believed in me, when I may not have believed in myself. She would say, "Don't you make the decision that you're not good enough. Let them decide." That was a constant my whole life. My mom, my cheerleader. I was so blessed to have Mom for my mother, but my mom was someone I would have chosen as a friend, a very dear friend. The best listeners, the best stories, the best advice. She would support you, give great advice, and yet tell it like it is. She was realistic and honest with her words, and funny too. Every year since I was 13, I used to blow out my candles wishing for another year with my mom. I got my wish tenfold. While my heart breaks with sadness, it is also filled with gratitude. Grateful to have had such a loving, devoted mother that gave me nothing but unconditional love and support my whole life. I love you, Mom, and you will be missed more than words could ever express. Mwah.
I'd like to call on Scott at this time.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming today. I'm Scott, proud son of Renee, Rini, honestly, I'm not even sure anymore, and Jerome Brahan, and brother to Michelle and Glenn, and of course, my mother's favorite child. To my mom, I was also Scotso Yingo Doodlelingo, or Yings for short, or Boychical, or simply Scotso. This is a sad day as we say our final farewells to a one-of-a-kind lady with a personality to match, but also a wonderful day to remember and celebrate who Renee was to all of us. To know my mom was to love my mom. And for those here today that knew her, you know what I mean. She was so many things to so many people, and she was such a colorful spirit to those around her. My mom was born on January 7th, 1936 in South Philly to Molly and Herman Kravitz, and raised alongside her late brother Danny and nephews Stephen and Jeff. 56 years ago, she married my dad, Jerome, and they moved to Woodcrest in Cherry Hill, where they lived for 51 years in a house you would definitely remember if you visited. And for 56 years, they loved each other, raised 3 kids, and shared more than a half-century of experiences together. To my dad, who loved her beyond description, she will always be known as the boss. Together, they were a treat to be around. Think the Costanzas from the Seinfeld. My mom lived a full life, relishing her role as our mother. She was very involved, even though she worked a full-time job for 42 years at the Naval Yard. The memories are countless, but from early on, I remember how every Saturday, even though there were great kids' TV options at that time slot, She would run us to Philly every Saturday for music and art class, Pops Water Ice, Philadelphia Public Library trips, the Italian market, and anything else Mom needed to do while we all complained along the way. She schlepped us to and from events and activities whether we wanted to or not. But that was my mom. She loved what she loved, and she was certain to share those things with her children. She was an impassioned fan of so many things: singing, animal rescue, feeding deers their staple food of day-old bagels, in a car that smelled like you were actually driving a bagel. Musicals, garage sales where everything was as good as new, apparently. Garage sales, yes, I said it twice. And anywhere there was good food being served. Growing up, all of us kids remember her plays and musicals and her love of singing. I'll never forget the times I played my guitar while my mom sung songs with me. If you've never heard Harry Chapin sung in soprano by my mom, well, that's your loss. Her love of animals was unmatched. She was never without a pet, especially cats. She loved her animals so much that when I was diagnosed with asthma as a young teenager along with severe allergies to cats, my mom said, "What do you want me to do, get rid of them?" There's more. Don't worry, you'll be out of the house in a couple of years. In her later years, even when walking became difficult, it would not stop her from feeding the stray cats in the neighborhood at 5 in the morning. Why at 5 in the morning, you ask? To avoid the cops. She was always active with animal rescue organizations in addition to literally rescuing animals herself. I remember driving with Mom, and there'd often be a stray animal that would join us along the way, including one time when a bird joined us and ended up flapping all over the place while all the kids in that carpool took it in. It wasn't just us. My mom was also the mother-in-law to Michael, Leah, and Ann. She told us how lucky we were to have married such great people. And secretly, I always wondered if she liked her kids' spousal choices more than her own children. I decided not to ask. And of course, she was a beloved grandmother to Jacob, Matthew, Reese, and Mitchell. She would always lament how her parents never got to meet her children. How wonderful it is that she not only met her grandchildren, but became an important figure in all their lives. Who can forget my mom at my son Jacob's bar mitzvah, though barely able to walk unassisted, got up and did the electric slide. For she wouldn't be stopped from having fun at an event as important as that. I'm so lucky to have my mom for so long. It was an 85-year amazing run. You should know that she lived well past her expiration date. She survived 2 bouts of breast cancer when I was young, in a time when recurring cancer was a death sentence, and refused to let her aging body slow her down. She'd say to me, "What am I going to do, sit home and feel sorry for myself?" If she were to be reincarnated, she'd come back as a hummingbird. Not because it's my favorite animal, like my mom, I have many bird feeders in my yard, but because that's how on the go she was until she could go no more. I will miss so many things about her: her sense of humor, her opinions, her uncanny ability to pick the Emmy and Oscar award winners, our almost daily phone calls and video chats, her asking how's the college boy doing, her saying "Hi, Lee" to my wife, and our discussions about pretty much everything. As most of you know, my mom was easy and interesting to talk to. Though it was a difficult 2 weeks with my mom in the hospital, it was also special times that we kids were fortunate to have. Around the clock, we each took turns caring for her 24 hours per day. We each spent one-on-one time talking to her about our lives together. I played country music and songs from the 50s for her. She either mouthed the words or softly sang them. I showed her videos of my boys when they were small, which she enjoyed. And we talked about a future without her, too. These topics were not easy. Even to the end, she died as she lived, always thinking of others before herself, thinking more about how the unfortunate situation she found herself in was a burden to her kids from out of town. I am sad but not pained, as I am so thankful to have had a mother like her and to have gotten to see her live a full life to the very end, a life she lived in her own way and in her own style. She was so much more than just an amazing woman who made an impact on those who knew her. She was my mom, and I love and miss her already.
And I would like to call on Stephen at this time.
think at times like this, I think we all tend to remember highlights of events that occur in our lives rather than the day-to-day details. Things that stand out. I can't see. Things that stand out, rather specific interactions or events that for some reason stay in our memories, like snapshots. And each of us has different triggers that lock something into our own individual memories that create those snapshots. For example, Jeff remembers certain things that happened or places we went that I don't remember at all, even though he swears that I was there, and vice versa. He doesn't remember a lot of things that I do. It's a little mysterious, don't you think, how people can recollect the same event with completely different takes? I think that what also makes it mysterious is the concept of time. At least for me, time is just elusive, something that is difficult to really grasp and understand. Just look at how fast your children grow and tell me you understand where the time went. So within that context of those isolated memories and the elusiveness of time, I want to share with you some of my personal snapshots that are etched into my memory forever, but that I also remember with the clarity that that elusive quality of time also makes seem like they just happened yesterday. Green became an aunt for the first time when I was born. She was just 15 years old. She became an aunt for the second time when Jeff was born, 5 years later. For me and Jeff, Green was the only remaining, always available, rock-solid foundation and ultimate resource, as well as sounding board in my father's family. She was also my confidant. The last all-knowing wizard connection to the precious but fleeting seconds of childhood for me and Jeff, and involved time with our grandparents and other family members that have since all gone. We knew all the funny stories, all the family secrets, all the family scandals, all the family mysteries. Stories of Uncle Max, Uncle Ben, Uncle Tim, Uncle Label, Uncle Limey, Cousin Herbie, Aunt Dora, Aunt Etty, and Uncle Bose, and others. I keep kicking myself for not writing down all those stories. I guess it's because I never really could imagine the inevitability of a day like this. And now it's too late. I remember, like it was yesterday, as I said, Sunday dinners at my grandmom's home on Galloway Street in South Philadelphia, sitting around the table with everyone. Sometimes Green was there, sometimes she wasn't. We were eating grandmom's meatballs and spaghetti from a large metal pot that seemed bottomless because we just kept eating. Because back then, no one ever set any limits on how much we could eat. Limits on food? What a ridiculous concept. That explains a lot. I remember our grandfather Herman, Green's dad, sitting across from me at the dining table, always reaching below under his belt and pulling out a long fabric mesh pouch or something that apparently held in his hernia, which he refused to get operated on until he became strangulated and led to his death. True story. I remember the house had an enclosed porch in front and a tilted kitchen floor in the back. The floor went like this for some reason. I remember Aunt Reen reading a book to me on the sofa in the living room when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember what the book was about, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't about teaching me to leave food on my plate. I remember the family circles at our home with all the uncles and cousins when laughter was so loud I'm sure it could have been heard on the moon. At my bar mitzvah service, right while I was reading from the Torah, with a packed congregation all seated, my Aunt Reen stood up in the middle of the whole crowd and took a flash photograph. Apparently that was a no-no in the conservative synagogue in 1964 because she was reprimanded by everybody around. But she didn't care though, she was going to take that picture no matter what. I remember the first time Maureen brought this handsome guy named Jerry to my parents' house to introduce us to him because they were planning to be married in another month or two. That took place very shortly after her mother, our grandmother Molly, had died, which, by the way, just happened to be exactly 56 years ago yesterday. I always remember it because she died on my brother Jeff's 9th birthday. At that funeral, which was the very first funeral I had ever gone to, I was kind of freaked out. One thing has been etched into my memory every day since that day in 1965. I can still hear Reen's voice wailing in tears, saying, "I'll never hear her yell at me again." I don't know what that says about her mother's relationship with her mother, but it's etched into my mind. She was 29 years old, still single, and had just lost her last parent. And that's what I mean about time being elusive, as I mentioned earlier. How can it possibly be that 56 years have passed since that specific moment occurred? Almost to the day. And now we're here. Logically, I could count and know it's been 56 years, but emotionally, it's inconceivable. I just can't grasp the sense of it because it's so vivid in my mind and still seems like yesterday to me. And so, in honor of my wonderful Aunt Reen, I'm suggesting to all of my relatives here today that we make it a point to try to make more phone calls to each other, make more plans to watch football games together, see shows together, watch movies together, take trips together, take classes together, ask questions about the past, have meaningful fun together, because another 56 years will surely pass like a rocket ship. The younger people here may think that I'm just saying that, but the older of us know how true it is. Over the years, I remember my dad having long conversations on the phone with his sister. It was so nice to me. I remember feeling really good about it because I know I didn't know if they had a close relationship when they were growing up because there was such a big age difference. My dad went off to fight in World War II when Reen was about 7 years old. I really regret not asking her what that was like. Reen, I'll miss your cards that you sent to me every birthday, every holiday. And I'll miss the happy birthday phone calls that came every year too. But mostly, I'll miss our regular calls where we talked about everything and everybody. Thanks to modern technology, I was able to print out a diagram of our family's DNA. Matthew, Jacob, Farah, you should all recognize what this is from your biology class. Here it is, family's DNA. So here you can see the double helix strand of DNA. That's what you guys should remember. And the genes inside. I'm going to read some of it to you here. This gene says, bad eyesight. This one says, bad back. Here's bad knees over here. And this one says, hearty appetite with extra calories. That one says a lot. But what is most amazing is this red one right here. Can you see it? The red gene right there? I was able to identify the exact gene, that red one, that only Reen and I shared, in addition to all the other family genes. My father didn't have this gene. Neither does my brother. Neither do my cousins Michelle, Scott, or Glenn. Only Reen and I had this family gene. And here it is in red. Can you see it? I enlarge it for you so you can see it better. For most of my life, I never knew that I shared this gene with Reen. I hated old and dusty, rusty things, hated used things, would never buy what I considered old, used junk. Never. It gave me the creeps. Strangely enough, though, the catalyst for awakening this special gene that Reen and I shared actually was Scott and Leah's wedding in San Diego. We had some time to kill before the wedding, and our hotel was in the middle of an antique area. So we had time to kill, so we walked in these antique shops, which I had never been in before, and I walked around, and in the back, all the way in the back of this store was this antique Victrola with a crank and a record on it playing and a beautiful piece of furniture. I was hooked. That was it. The rest is history, and those of you who know me know what that led to. My Aunt Reen and I became very close after that. She became my unofficial yard sale coach. Here was our typical conversation after yard sale day, which for you novices is usually Saturdays. Here it is. Reen, so what treasures did we find today that we couldn't live without? She'd say, Steve, I bought some junk that I'll never use. But it was so damn cheap. To which I replied, I completely understand. Then she said, Steve, to tell you the truth, I'm pretty sure I already have about 4 or 5 of these, but I can't find them. To which I replied, yes, but Reen, just think about it. If you ever do find them, and if you ever do decide to use them, and if, while you're using them, one of them ever breaks, thank God at least now you have a backup. To which we laughed hysterically, because we both understood that we had that gene. Oh, and Reen, all those cards and letters you sent me over the years, I know you wouldn't be at all surprised to learn that I saved them all, but I just have to find them. These stories and memories can't hide the deep heartbreak that we feel. I'll always love you and miss you, Reen.
As we begin to close this service, I did come across a poem which I believe reflects Reenie's philosophy of life and living. I'd like to read it as if she would be responding to the magnificent words spoken here this morning. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took God's hand when I heard God call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work or play. Task left undone must stay that way. I found that place at the close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss, ah yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me now. God set me free. Let us all rise. And I do conclude conclude with the El Moro Rachamim prayer. El Moro Rachamim Shochen Bamronim Chametzei Menucha Nachona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Lenishmat Renee Brayan Shekhalaka La'olama Ba'al Harachamim Yitzur Bitra Hakayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of our beloved Rini, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring her into your presence and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou her possession, and may she rest in peace. Amen. You may be seated.
Pallbearers, please step to the center aisle. I'll ask if we can rise once more, please.